Hello everyone, my name is Sarah Vert, and this is Pouch Lions and Tasmanian Tigers and Drop Bears, oh my. This is going to be a deeper look into the history and prehistory of Australian wildlife and the misconceptions surrounding it. The Australian continent is the smallest of the 7 continents, but the 6th largest country on Earth. As such, it is considered a megadiverse area. Megadiversity refers to the massive amount of biodiversity present in a specific country. Australia has several distinct environments, which leads to a massive variety of plant and animal life. As noted by the Australian Department of Agriculture, Water and the Environment, the country is broken up into several distinct ecoregions. Each of these ecoregions is home to its own unique variety of plant and animal life. While this is common for several large countries classified as megadiverse, the contents of these ecoregions is incredibly unique. The types of species that thrive in Australia are distinctive. Additionally, Indigenous Australians are considered to be one of, if not the oldest, human population outside of Africa. Non-Australians have a variety of misconceptions about the dangers of the Australian animals and environments. While there are a variety of venomous or predatory creatures, such as the natural order of any environment with such a massive concentration of biodiversity. There are myths, legends, and tales of cryptids associated with Australia that unfairly paint this landscape as dangerous and uninhabitable. Tales of venomous spiders and snakes, wild dogs hell-bent on killing, ancient creatures that still live in the wilds of the outback are rampant when discussing Australia. These myths permeate outside culture so heavily that many only see the danger. Even seemingly harmless, quirky creatures, such as platypuses, are huge and full of poison in American mythology, and a joke made by Australians to dupe tourists transform koalas into drop bears, dangerous versions of themselves that drop out of trees to attack prey. And while of course there are bits of truth to all absurd claims, the reality is much less sinister and far more interesting. The massive amount of biodiversity in Australia means more creatures to see and explore. There are venomous reptiles and bugs associated with the area, but there are also many other creatures, including rare non-placental mammals. The Australian continent and its surrounding areas are the only places to find monotremes, a rare type of mammal that is known for its reproduction using hard-shelled eggs. It is also home to the largest concentration of marsupials, mammals that reproduce through early birth followed by continued growth in an external pouch. Australia is covered with a large amount of desert and grassland biome, which is incredibly conducive to high populations of reptiles and arachnids. This is primarily where the stereotype of many poisonous reptiles and bugs comes from. Australia is also home to crocodiles and sharks, which to outsiders mean neither land nor sea are safe from harm. The reality is that any large area with massive amounts of biodiversity, there are going to be some predators, but these are far outweighed by the other species in the area and are only minimally impactful to human life. The country of Australia is also home to the Great Barrier Reef, which holds a massive variety of oceanic wildlife, including huge living groups of corals and anemone. This is not only huge for the area, but also one of the most biologically diverse oceanic habitats on Earth. Out of all the myths and legends about the dangers of Australia, perhaps the most preposterous is the idea that it is inhospitable to humans. Indigenous cultures in Australia are considered to be one of the oldest civilizations outside of Africa. For generations, Australian Indigenous people live on the land without much confrontation at all with the environment. Rather, like many Indigenous cultures, they live in tandem with the land, cultivating the environment and working with animal life. So, with a massive amount of biodiversity, a variety of plant and animal life, and an environment for all creatures, Australia thrives, allowing certain species to live for thousands of years relatively uninterrupted. Australia was, of course, home to a variety of prehistoric species as well, but the most fascinating thing about these ancient animals is the longevity of many. Australia is home to crocodiles and sharks, which are worldwide recognized as ancient relics minimally changed by history. In the fossil record, there are animals in the same family group as the thylacine, which went extinct due to overhunting in the early 30s, as far back as tens of millions of years ago. Anatomically modern thylacines were in the fossil record as far back as 4 million years ago. The pouch lion, pictured here, is one of these ancient relatives. As noted, humans have been on the Australian continent for thousands of years and are one of the longest continuously lived human cultures. Interactions between the indigenous people of Australia and their localized species is long-standing. Much prehistoric artwork contains depictions of assorted species. Additionally, other items that are commonly associated with Australia were created to interact with Australian animals, usually for hunting purposes. For instance, the boomerang or throw stick, now associated with Australian culture, was depicted as a hunting tool about 50,000 years ago, meaning the item may be significantly older still. Some studies suggest the hunting techniques utilized by Indigenous Australians actually increased populations of animals in Australia and may have led to the continued survival and success of many species. Practices of cultivation and hunting by Indigenous Australians were most likely integral to the thriving of many unique Australian species. colonialism came a new host of interactions with animals in the Australian environment. It is most likely that this is where a variety of myths of dangers untold began. To the untrained eye, it's easy to see where the land would be hostile. However, as noted, Indigenous Australians had no trouble taming the wilderness and living harmoniously. Unfortunately, with colonialism came overhunting and the decline of many Australian animals. The cultural shift between sustainable hunting and overhunting is noticeable after the mid-1800s when British colonial forces became present. Australia was one of the areas that was integral to the study and understanding of evolution and natural selection. Charles Darwin noted over 100 species there during his brief stay on his journey with the Beagle. As presented by Charles Darwin, evolution is the concept that through natural selection, animals will continue to adapt and grow as a species. Species are more likely to survive if they have well-suited habitat and minimal predators and interaction. As Australia is essentially a giant island with several separated ecoregions, it is an excellent example of these concepts. The indigenous cultivation of the environment was integral to the growth and development of many species. Through environmental cultivation, sustainable hunting, and the utilization of fire as a hunting tool, their interactions were incredibly helpful in maintaining and possibly growing the viability of animal life. By using fire and bushland, Aboriginal people were able to hunt reptiles such as lizards while also removing undergrowth, which allowed for smaller mammal species to live and thrive in these areas. This creates a chain reaction that allows for other species to thrive as well. As much as humans can aid in the adaptation and growth of a species, they can also aid in its downfall. As seen with the thylacine, overhunting and habitat alterations can cause extinction incredibly quickly. Especially in Australia's unique environment, it is incredibly important for humans to maintain their positive interactions with the environment and continue to be a driving source for positive growth rather than a cause of death. With all of this in mind, it's easy to separate the myth from reality, and also to understand why Australia is so incredibly saturated with species that outsiders find bizarre. Unfortunately, the uniqueness of Australia's environments and species means that they are more likely to be affected by outside introduction. Introduction of invasive species such as the cane toad are highly detrimental to plant and animal life. The continuation of neo-colonial culture does not allow Aboriginal people to return to their hunting practices, despite us knowing that these practices are crucial to the maintenance of the environment. Global climate change is also negatively affecting many species, especially oceanic species who are being eliminated by the rising sea temperatures and subsequent bleaching of the Great Barrier Reef's coral. In all this fear, though, there is a ray of hope as Indigenous people fight for their land maintenance rights, and just this year, several new marsupials have been discovered in Australia. Understanding this continent, its history, and its interactions between species, yes, including humans, is crucial to the continued preservation of all its unique natural gifts. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. For more information on these, you can visit these sources, post-pandemic, of course. Go to your local library and check out call numbers 575 for evolution and genetics or 994 for general history of Australia. Thanks again, and stay safe, everyone.